Commissioner, welcome to Stateline. Just to begin with, why should someone actually care about discrimination if it doesn't affect them?
Discrimination in itself is an area that everyone should give themselves permission to care because of the human harm that one has to endure as a result of discrimination. They feel like they don't belong.
Is that from your own kind of personal experience as well?
It's from my personal experience and also vicariously seeing others. As a migrant to Australia, you are always trying to fit in, and because the other doesn't let you fit in. And the other may not let you fit in the context of decisions they make about the sort of work that you do, or can do, or should do, and the sort of opportunities that you deserve.
You've said the government is watering down the Anti-Discrimination Act. Do you feel there's an attempt here to diffuse your power?
It's not so much about, I think, diffusing my power, because the functions and powers of the Commission and the Commissioner are clearly laid out in the Anti-Discrimination Act. But it's a struggle when the Commission is being told that in order for us to receive more funding, that we need to respond to the three things. Are we rebuilding the economy? Are we restoring territory lifestyle? And are we reducing crime? Now, that's the mandate of the government. That is not the mandate of the Commission.
Is that an attack on the independence of the Commission?
It is an attack on the independence of the Commission, but more to that, I think there's a great misunderstanding of how statutory bodies work. We do not work in the context of the government of the day's mandate based on its policies. It works on the mandate as an independent statutory body provided by the legislation. And for us, it's about the way in which we can achieve equality of opportunity for all Territorians.
Since the Country Liberal Party formed government, Aboriginal leaders have raised repeated concerns about its law and order changes, such as lowering the age of criminal responsibility, criminalising public drunkenness, tightening bail restrictions. Do you share those concerns?
I very much share those concerns in the context of which the speed in which such provisions are brought in, but also the concerns in terms of how it disproportionately impacts Aboriginal people.
Is the Northern Territory government, as it currently stands, racist?
I would not perhaps outwardly say that this government is racist, but the policies in which sometimes that they propose and enact can have a racist outcome. If you are bringing in these new laws which could potentially have racist outcomes, you also then need to ensure that you're also reforming the systems within the organization. Otherwise, these new reforms will inherit a system that's already plagued with racism. And the question then you ask is, are you really making a difference here?
Thank you for joining Stateline.
Thank you, Lillian.
Okay, and so with those tactics out of the way, it's time to actually conclude this video. As soon as this video is published on the internet, I am going to be defamed as usual. And what that means is that I am forced to defend myself as much as I can by showing everyone how the defamation works when it is perpetrated by people inside the Northern Territory government. This should actually be instructive to quite a few people. On the screen now is the parchment I received when I finished my studies in pharmacy at the University of South Australia. I don't want to big note myself or anything like that, but I really am one of those people who gets academic scholarships for excellence and things like that because I study hard. Also on the screen, alongside the bachelor's degree, is a news article that was written about me when I was contesting an election, which claimed that I had pretended to be a pharmacist when I did not. For those interested, what was going on is that I had protested about an untested swine flu vaccine in the year 2009, which is 16 years ago, and was attacked by the local licensing board, who said that because I had not registered with them, it meant that I wasn't allowed to use the word pharmacist. A short time after I made my protest, the vaccine schedule for children under age 5 was suspended Australia-wide because so many children were being hospitalised or dying because the vaccine had caused serious side effects. During the COVID pandemic that broke out in 2020, many other health professionals had the same experience I did and were persecuted by their own licensing boards. I fully expect that exactly this kind of defamation will happen again, where the people in charge of the Northern Territory government are going to make something up to make me look silly or discredit me somehow. Next on the screen is one of the official documents that I took to court when I disputed the election, in which I mentioned the eligibility criteria matter connected to Electoral Commissioner Iain Loganathan in ground number 6, which is at the bottom. Since the document is in my handwriting, I'll type it out and put it on the screen on the left so that everyone can read ground number 6, so that they can see exactly what was hidden and then falsified by both Electoral Commissioner Iain Loganathan and later Supreme Court Justice Stephen Southwood. As a reminder, this is the information that Commissioner Loganathan hid from the Chief Minister before the election even finished, because he knew that if anyone found out what he had done, it would cause him to lose his $300,000 per year job. To explain how that works, on the screen now is a news article about ICAC Commissioner Michael Riches, which is very similar to the matter involving Electoral Commissioner Iain Loganathan, in that Michael Riches kept a $20,000 payment to his ex-wife secret from the Chief Minister. What ICAC Commissioner Michael Riches did is analogous to what Commissioner Loganathan did, because Commissioner Loganathan kept my filing to him secret from the Chief Minister before the election finished and before my election dispute had even started. And then after that, Commissioner Loganathan falsified the election report in Section 7.77 to conceal what he had done from the public, which is of course an abuse of office as per Section 81 of the Criminal Code Act 1983. For those interested, you're welcome to watch episode 8 of Episode George, which explains all of that in detail. Now that I've established that, next on the screen is an email sent by Electoral Commissioner Iain Loganathan to an NT News journalist who had questioned him about the election dispute, in which he lied to the journalist from his official email account, which for the record is an abuse of office under Section 81 of the Criminal Code. I'll highlight this to make it easier to see, but in the email, what was happening is that the journalist asked what the grounds of election dispute were, which meant that Commissioner Loganathan was obligated to say that he had personally corrupted the election because of the eligibility criteria issue I had named in ground number 6. Instead, Commissioner Loganathan lied and said that the election dispute was solely about misleading campaign material, which of course meant that he defrauded the entire public that had a right to know what he had done, and probably committed the crime of obtaining benefit by deception, in my opinion, along with his abuse of office. And then finally on the screen now is the news article that was published by the NT News a short time after Commissioner Loganathan had lied to the NT News journalist, which actually uses a racial slur to ridicule me for going to court. And it goes without saying that the news article did not mention ground number 6 or the eligibility criteria issue in any way, because Iain Loganathan had lied to the journalist. An important thing to say is that since I had already run in an election by this point, what all of this means is that the Northern Territory Electoral Commission itself illegally defamed an independent politician named George Mamouzelos to cover up a rigged election using racial slurs. To make my point, on the screen now is a picture of Senator Jacinta Price, who is also from the Northern Territory, next to a giant witchetty grub and a caption saying "Goodest Bush Tucker, Senator Jacinta Price's witchetty grubs," which of course is just made up. I'm not really saying this about Jacinta. But in my opinion, there really is no difference between this article that was written about me and this very demeaning photograph and caption about Senator Price. Lastly, on the screen now is episode 7 of Episode George, which shows how the second highest ranked Supreme Court judge in the Northern Territory, Stephen Southwood, falsified the evidence I'd presented to the Supreme Court to hide the election rigging committed by Electoral Commissioner Iain Loganathan. It goes without saying that all of this had a tremendous effect on my business and guaranteed that I would never have a political career either. Okay, so I hope that that was instructive to people who don't properly realise exactly what the Northern Territory government is or how it behaves. On the subject of Supreme Court judges, while I was recording this conclusion, I had an idea. And so on the screen now is the index of 6 pieces of legislation used by the group of criminals to take over the Northern Territory. On this list, the 5th piece of legislation is the Judicial Commission Act 2020. On the screen now, on the left is a man named Michael Grant. Michael Grant is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the Northern Territory, which means that he is both a member of the panel on the Judicial Commission that was created by the Judicial Commission Act, and it means that he is the only Supreme Court judge who has a higher rank than Stephen Southwood. Logically, therefore, this means that Chief Justice Michael Grant is the one who is supposed to refer Stephen Southwood to police for falsifying evidence in the case, but instead, Michael Grant is covering the matter up. The reason I've mentioned Michael Grant is because in episode 7 of Episode George, the whole episode is about what happened when I made a filing to the Judicial Commission, which was followed by the Judicial Commission actually covering the matter up instead of investigating or referring Stephen Southwood to Northern Territory Police. And so what I have to say is this. If you recall, earlier in the presentation, I went through an example showing how the Police Administration Act 1978 was used to protect a child molester named Senator Bob Collins, who had molested dozens, if not hundreds, of Aboriginal boys in the township of Alice Springs until, fortunately, the Federal Indigenous Affairs Minister Mal Brough got involved and exposed what he had done. The reason I've mentioned Chief Justice Michael Grant is because his father, Arthur, aka Sauce Grant, was the Assistant Police Commissioner for many of the years that Bob Collins was molesting those Aboriginal boys. And yet now here we are with Arthur Sauce Grant's son, Michael Grant, working as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court when evidence is being falsified in high-profile cases like mine, which, for the record, has citation Mamuzelos vs. Vatskalis and others, 2018, NTSC 57. Then, on top of that, something else to say is that another connection to all of this corruption going on is that Chief Justice Michael Grant was given his first major government job as Director of Litigation in the Department of the Attorney General by the Attorney General Dennis Burke, who is Police Minister Leah Finocchiaro's father-in-law and who is the father of her thieving husband Sam Burke, who stole $400,000 from Darwin Waterfront Corporation. On that basis, in my opinion, the Chief Justice, Michael Grant, is actually at the centre of the cabal of criminals who've used these 6 pieces of legislation to take over the Northern Territory government in what can only really be called an administrative or a judicial coup. For context, on the screen now is a news article published in the Australian newspaper in which Chief Justice Michael Grant did something very unusual and actually spoke to journalists, which judges very rarely do. In the article, Michael Grant said that for every dollar that Northern Territory Police received, his own justice system should receive at least $1.50. Using logic, in my opinion, it makes perfect sense for a corrupt Chief Justice to demand more money from the Northern Territory government, which would be used to hire government lawyers to go into court and argue against people like me. In other words, if you are a mafia boss or a gangster in the Supreme Court and you need soldiers to do your dirty work, it means that you would hire lawyers to be your soldiers and then use the lawyers against people like me using those 6 pieces of legislation with as much money as you could get out of Leah Finocchiaro, who needs your support in court anyway to protect her husband Sam Burke in relation to the $400,000 waterfront issue. So, personally, I wouldn't give a single dollar to any court that Michael Grant is in charge of or even a part of because of his family history protecting child molesters and more recently his own involvement at the Judicial Commission that hid the matter of Stephen Southwood falsifying evidence. And in fact, I think that one of the major reasons that Michael Grant really wants more money from the Northern Territory government is because he is paid $584,000 per year to run the Supreme Court, which has ended up being so corrupt that his judges falsify evidence. I'm not really sure what to say about that, except that it appears to be naked gangsterism and cronyism to me. Okay, so I think that that is enough, and so this video presentation is finished. On the screen now is a list of internet addresses or identities you can use to find more video presentations like this one or various articles that I write, which are episodegeorge.com, The Mango Inquisition, and Most Genius Greek Philosopher of Darwin, all of which can be found on several social media platforms, including YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, Telegram, Facebook, and others. Everything in this video presentation is my opinion, recollection, and speculation, and is the spoken and authorised political campaign material of George Mamouzelos Darwin. Thank you, whoever you are, for your attention, and take it easy.